The story begins on a bright, sunny morning as the MC stands outside a large building. He feels nervous because it is his first day at work. While waiting, he keeps wondering whether he looks like a proper working adult and worries that someone might find him suspicious or out of place. In the middle of these thoughts, a female voice comes from behind him. Startled, he quickly turns around. The woman asks if something is wrong, and he nervously replies that nothing is. She appears very beautiful, and her presence makes him even more unsettled. Looking at her in confusion and slight embarrassment, he begins imagining what it would be like if she were his boss. Working under someone like her would be motivating, yet also intimidating. Gathering his courage, he enters the office building. Inside, employees move around in a busy environment. When his turn comes, he steps forward and introduces himself as a new employee starting that day, stating his name as Inui Narumi. After his introduction, he notices the same woman is the head of the department he has joined. She introduces herself as being responsible for guiding new employees and supporting everyone who joined that year, adding that she will be in charge of him for the day. Inui understands that she will be directly involved in his first day at the office. She begins writing on the board to present his job role, outlining his responsibilities. While observing her, he finds her difficult to approach, even though her presence is striking. During the explanation, she suddenly turns back and questions whether he is still distracted. He quickly apologizes and tries to focus. She then steps closer and continues the explanation directly in front of him. As she goes into detail, concentration becomes difficult as her presence keeps pulling his attention away, leaving him overwhelmed. After finishing, she checks if there are any questions. He nervously replies that there are none, though his heartbeat remains fast. Noticing his condition, she decides to give him a short break and instructs him to rest for a while. He agrees and leaves the area, still feeling unsettled. Outside, exhaustion sets in. The training period already feels draining, and the environment itself feels uncomfortable. Nearby, two employees are talking. They mention they are glad new trainees have joined, and that the supervisor's attention is now partly on them, giving others temporary relief. He realizes they are talking about the same woman supervising him. They continue, noting that although she is very beautiful, she is difficult to read and known for her strict nature. Her leadership has significantly improved department performance, and she is also known for taking strict action against serious mistakes, making her both respected and feared. This makes him even more uneasy, and he reflects again on how difficult it is to relax around her due to her reserved expression. Lost in thought, he returns to the supervisor's office. She notices his return and checks whether he still needs a break, adding that rest is important and neglecting it can affect others as well. He listens carefully. Understanding her point, he reflects on her strict reputation, realizing that she expects discipline and strong performance from everyone in her department. She then leads him to another employee and assigns him to assist his senior colleague as part of his training before leaving. Approaching the senpai, he is handed a box and told to organize its contents. Additional tasks follow, including copying documents, and the workload steadily increases until it becomes overwhelming. As time passes, he remains fully occupied with work, with no proper break. By evening, the office grows quiet, but he is still working and realizes he is doing overtime on his very first day, leaving him both surprised and exhausted. The supervisor returns and notices him still there, asking why he is working past his shift. He explains the situation and shows the remaining tasks. Seeing this, she steps in and helps by taking part of the workload, quickly finishing a large portion and reducing his burden. Afterward, he reflects that learning her working style may help him assist more effectively in the future and thanks her for the help. They handle the remaining work efficiently. She calmly reassures him that this is part of a leader's responsibility. He then hesitantly asks about a rumor regarding strict punishment of employees in front of clients. She clarifies that the situation was misunderstood, explaining she had gone to apologize for a mistake, and that the employees chose to leave on their own due to feeling responsible. She also states that she takes full responsibility for her department as part of her role. After hearing this, he expresses that she has helped him on his first day and is guiding him properly, believing those who left may have misunderstood her intentions and seeing her as a dedicated leader. She gently stops him, says she understands, thanks him, and asks if he is ready to go home. He agrees. While walking, he reflects on earlier rumors about her strict leadership and performance-driven environment. She then confirms that part of those stories is true, which leaves him even more aware of her reputation. The next day, he stands outside the same building again, feeling nervous as the situation feels similar to his first day. The chief arrives, notices him, and checks if everything is all right. The same situation from the previous day seems to repeat itself. Inui Narumi declares that, as a newly employed and responsible member of society, he will continue putting effort into adapting to his new environment. Although everything still feels unfamiliar, He intends to work hard and perform well. After this, Inui hands a set of documents to Director Shishido and requests her to review them. Once she receives them, he quietly sits in the office and thinks to himself. He feels relieved that his work did not need to be redone and considers that his performance has not been poor so far. At the same time, he reminds himself not to become overly satisfied and believes he still needs to keep improving. While he is still occupied with these thoughts, Director Shishido suddenly calls his name, causing him to react nervously due to the unexpected situation. Noticing his reaction, she realizes he has been startled, and Inui immediately apologizes. Later, the director notices that Inui is eating lunch and begins questioning his usual eating habits. After observing his meal, she points out that his current routine is not good for maintaining his health. Inui responds that he understands this issue but mentions that his schedule leaves him with little extra time, so he usually chooses whatever is convenient. After hearing his response, she does not accept it as a sufficient reason. She tells him that poor eating habits may be contributing to his lack of energy and tense condition. She also states that monitoring employee well-being falls within her responsibilities and decides to have lunch with him. Inui becomes surprised by this decision and feels uncomfortable at the thought of sharing lunch with someone in her position. However, she emphasizes that looking after employees is part of a supervisor's role and insists that she cannot ignore the situation. Since she is firm about it, Inui agrees. She then takes the initiative and leads him outside. While they are walking, she inquires about what kind of food he would prefer. Inui tries to think of an answer but cannot decide on anything. Realizing she asked too suddenly, she mentions that she had expected such a response. She then takes out a guidebook and shows it to him. Inside are nearby dining options, including places suitable for meetings with employees and others sometimes used for more important business gatherings. After seeing this, Inui tells her that choosing an ordinary place would also be completely acceptable. After leaving the office area, they proceed to a restaurant together. Upon arriving, Shishido observes that it is a regular chain restaurant and briefly questions whether it is an appropriate choice. Inui responds that for someone who often eats outside, such places are more convenient. As he speaks, he realizes how his words might sound and quickly becomes uneasy, as it may imply they will come here frequently. He then clarifies that he does not usually visit places like this. While looking at the menu, he notices several options and finds one dish that stands out as especially appealing. She also reviews the menu and points out a dessert set, asking for his opinion. Inui studies the menu once again and indicates one item, carefully checking its details before responding. After deciding on the food, she places the order for both of them and adds hot coffee. Just as the order is being finalized, she remembers that Inui had shown interest in dessert earlier. She brings up the cake he noticed while reading the menu. Inui becomes hesitant, as he did not expect her to remember that detail. After a brief pause, he agrees to include the dessert as well. The order is then completed with a blueberry cake added along with their meals. After some time, their meal is served. She suggests they begin eating and observes Inui's behavior as they sit together. She notices that he seems unsure and remarks that she is not very comfortable with certain food items, using peas as an example. While they continue eating, she unexpectedly feeds him, leaving Inui uneasy and internally resigned. Inui then inquires whether she usually has lunch with subordinates in this manner. She replies that this is actually the first time she has done so, adding that most people tend to avoid joining her during lunch breaks. Hearing this, he apologizes and acknowledges that she still agreed to accompany him despite that situation. After finishing the meal, they are served coffee. At that moment, Shishido notices something on Inui's face and points it out. As he tries to react, she leans closer to clean it. During this, the coffee is accidentally spilled onto Inui's trousers. Both of them are caught off guard, and she immediately reacts with concern, checking if he is all right while searching for something to clean it. With no tissues available, she uses part of her clothing to wipe the spill, creating an awkward situation for Inui. He becomes visibly flustered and insists that he can handle it himself. Just then, a waiter approaches and notices the situation, asking if anything is wrong. The interruption increases the confusion, and both panic as the situation becomes even more awkward. After returning to the office, Inui reflects on lunch with the director and feels he understands her a little more. He decides that the next day he should take things slowly and eat alone. While he is thinking, a supervisor interrupts him, reminding him that break time is over and asking why he is still not working. Inui apologizes and says he was simply recalling lunch. The supervisor then asks if he enjoyed it that much and suggests having lunch together again in the future, standing close to him as she speaks. Feeling confused and pressured, he responds hesitantly and agrees. Inui works at the office, feeling a mix of admiration and fear toward Director Shishido. She is attractive and highly dedicated to her work. Recently, She has begun speaking to him more often during breaks, which makes him consider becoming more dependable at work in the future. During office hours, a company-wide competition is announced and informs employees that participation is open to everyone. Inui replies that he wants to finish his actual work first and shows no interest in joining at that moment. Later, the boss approaches him again and directly informs him that he will be participating with her. Inside the conference room, the supervisor ties her hair and explains that the meeting continues a previous discussion. She tells him that if he maintains his current attitude, he will not be able to rise in rank within the company. Inui feels pressured and agrees, saying he will do his best. She then mentions that there is a bonus for the task and adds that participants will also be able to eat yakiniku as a reward. This surprises Inui and makes him reconsider the situation. Afterward, Inui reflects on how he should approach the task ahead. The supervisor continues explaining the paper task and instructs Inui not to overload his mind with too much information at the beginning. She emphasizes placing himself in the position of the end user and understanding what would actually be useful from their perspective, using an example to guide him. After work, he returns home in the evening, exhausted from the day. As soon as he opens the door, a young woman greets him warmly. She asks about his condition after the cold outside weather and offers him a choice between taking a bath or having food first. He hesitates and chooses to take a bath first. She reacts strongly, complaining about his choice and his behavior in frustration. She then asks why he looks so serious. Inui responds that he feels he should have chosen food instead and appears confused about the situation. She offers to feed him if he is hungry and says she is willing to give him as much food as he wants. She prepares the meal and encourages him to relax so he can focus properly afterward. Later, the situation shifts back to work as the earlier discussion continues. They return to the main task and proceed after facing several difficult challenges. Preparation for the competition continues as they get ready for what comes next. Inui is working at the office and feels relieved that the task has been completed successfully. He believes most of the credit belongs to the director. However, she corrects him, saying he is exaggerating and explaining that she has also included Inui's ideas in the final outcome. She further tells him to have more confidence in his contributions. Inui responds that he is not usually praised and admits this is one reason he struggles with confidence. He rests his head on his desk, appearing tired and uncertain. The supervisor sits near his desk and places a hand on his head, remarking that she has already praised him and asking whether he did not like it. Inui quickly denies this, though he remains unsure. Later, other employees discuss the result, saying the director was ultimately recognized and that it is natural given her higher position. Inui listens and thinks everyone is only talking about her. He reflects that he is still a newcomer and that inexperience comes with disadvantages. At that moment, the director approaches again. She notices his expression and asks why he looks unhappy, questioning whether he still lacks confidence. Inui briefly denies it. She then tells him she will continue observing his efforts closely and encourages him to keep doing his best, promising further recognition later. She also instructs him to eat properly for now, adding that evaluations and criticism will continue in the future. Inui acknowledges her words. One day, Shishido prepares for a busy day, mentally reviewing her schedule. A sales meeting at 10 o'clock, presentation materials, a departmental meeting at 11:30 with time set aside for employee feedback, budget calculations, and a business proposal for upper management due between 13:20 and 13:50. As she continues going through each task in her mind, the pressure of time and workload gradually builds. After eating some cake, she suddenly notices an uncomfortable change in her physical condition. Later in the office, Inui stands in a drowsy state. Shishido notices this and comments that he seems unusually relaxed. Inui reacts with slight surprise and says he had to rush earlier due to unexpected circumstances. He adds that he has been feeling physically weak recently and mentions an early morning run that left him more exhausted than expected, which is why he remains sleepy during work. The next morning, Inui walks together with the director. She moves ahead with strong energy and calls for him to keep up. She maintains a strict and focused attitude, insisting on taking everything seriously and noting that maintaining physical health is also part of her responsibility toward work. Inui suggests taking things more easily since it is still before working hours, but she firmly rejects the idea and insists on full effort, stating it is all for his benefit. Inui watches her intense motivation with slight confusion. They begin a training routine consisting of stretching and light exercise. Inui assists the director with shoulder, stretching from behind, carefully adjusting her posture. During the exercise, she applies pressure but seems uncertain about the correct amount. She continues the movement and checks whether her form is correct and whether the pressure she is applying is appropriate. As the movement continues, they briefly end up standing closer together because of the stretching exercise. Inui becomes flustered while she remains focused on completing the routine. During the training, Inui remains behind her while helping adjust her movements. He finds the close proximity distracting and struggles to stay focused on the exercise. She, however, remains fully concentrated on her training. She notices his reaction and checks if he is all right, but Inui quickly denies any issue. She says she is applying pressure as instructed, and Inui briefly wonders whether he underestimated the situation or whether the force being applied is stronger than expected. Shortly afterward, she becomes even more energetic and declares her intention to push herself further. She immediately increases the intensity of the exercise and begins running at full speed, stating that maintaining this pace will improve physical fitness and help with weight reduction. Inui watches her strong motivation while reflecting on her determination and capability in both work and physical training. At the same time, he notices that she attracts attention from people nearby, creating distractions around them. His visibility becomes partially obstructed during the activity, leaving him internally frustrated. As the exercise continues, she tells him he is blocking the path and questions what he is doing. Despite the intensity of the workout, she remarks that the early morning training feels surprisingly manageable and not uncomfortable. She adds that continued effort may lead to further physical improvement and again mentions weight loss as one of her goals. Inui responds that he was not aware she was concerned about her weight. Maintaining a neutral expression, he continues observing her determination as the training session proceeds. Shishido questions Inui about why he has stopped drinking, suggesting that he may not want to share a drink with the person accompanying him. Caught off guard, Inui becomes visibly startled and struggles to understand what she means. A few hours earlier, he approaches a colleague to ask if something is wrong. The colleague tells him that Director Shishido is expected to attend the newcomers' welcome party. He later chats with another coworker, encouraging everyone to treat the rookie as the highlight of the evening and enjoy the event despite the workload. Nearby, the rookie remains overwhelmed as preparations continue. Thinking that some of the senior employees may still attend the gathering, Inui leaves the area. Later, he joins the supervisor for lunch. She mentions that this is her first time attending an event like this and worries that the director might drink too much. She notes that gatherings like these can be unpredictable, making it hard to know what will happen. Confused, Inui asks what she means. Noticing his reaction, she checks if something is bothering him. Inui assures her that everything is fine, though he silently decides to endure whatever happens and focus on eating since he is hungry. Moments later, the supervisor orders an extra-large mug of beer and 2 bottles of shochu. Watching the order, Inui quietly wonders whether he will make it through the evening, sensing that things are about to become difficult. He then notices that no other department members are present and looks around in uncertainty. The supervisor explains that the others are busy with work and could not attend. When he asks about it, she remarks that it is unfortunate, but adds that smaller gatherings are often quieter than larger ones. Inui agrees, commenting that the situation might actually be favorable since it allows them to spend time together. She immediately becomes flustered, dismisses the implication, and continues the conversation while pouring more beer into his glass. She then asks whether he often attends drinking gatherings. Inui replies that he was never very outgoing, even as a student, so he rarely participated in such events. Surprised, she remarks that they might have something in common and jokingly comments that a slightly intoxicated director could appear charming. When Inui asks if she truly believes that, she explains that whenever she rejects people who approach her, they usually stop inviting her afterward. Hearing this, he quietly concludes that they are not similar at all. As the conversation continues, the supervisor gradually becomes emotional. Looking saddened, she insists that she is nothing like him. Growing more affected by the alcohol, she remarks that he seems to have many close friends. Inui replies that he does. She goes on to explain that she has always tried to remain polite and friendly, yet still has very few close connections. Once again, she insists that she is not like Inui. Sensing her mood becoming increasingly negative, he also notices her comment that it feels unusual for him to care about matters like this. Trying to lighten the atmosphere, Inui suggests ordering snacks. He compliments her serious attitude toward work, describing it as strong and self-confident. While she continues drinking, he refills her glass. She speaks about respecting authority and learning from senior employees. Inui responds encouragingly, though he cannot help wondering how the evening has turned out this way, reminding himself that this is supposed to be a welcome party for newcomers. Addressing her formally, he asks whether she can actually handle alcohol. She admits that she cannot and says she normally switches to non-alcoholic drinks after her first glass. However, because of the occasion, she decides to keep drinking throughout the event. As time passes, she becomes increasingly unsteady. Inui realizes her intoxication is deepening and that the situation is becoming difficult to manage. Director Shishido suddenly moves closer to Inui and notices that he appears unaffected by alcohol. She wonders why he has stopped drinking and jokingly suggests that perhaps he no longer wants to share a drink with her. Caught off guard, he immediately denies it. After taking a closer look at her condition, he realizes she has had too much to drink and asks whether she is still able to walk. Deciding she should not go alone, he supports her and accompanies her toward the train station. Once outside, the director looks around in confusion and wonders whether they are heading toward the station. Inui admits that he is unfamiliar with the area as well. Still disoriented, she jokingly asks where he intends to take her. Hearing this, Inui panics and apologizes repeatedly. Deeply embarrassed, he compares himself to the kind of people who may have approached her before, his thoughts becoming increasingly dramatic as he tries to explain himself. The director reassures him that she is not upset and makes it clear that she does not see him as that type of person. She adds that the outcome would not necessarily be rejection and remarks that situations like these are more complicated than they seem. Hearing this, Inui quietly wonders what she means. As they continue walking, she remarks that she feels comfortable around him. Because of her intoxicated state, she slows down and calls him closer. Surprised, he asks for confirmation, but she simply points ahead, noticing that the station appears to be nearby. Inui agrees. She thanks him for spending time with her and admits that although she did most of the talking, she enjoyed the evening. In a quieter voice, she adds that she finds it easier to speak freely around him. Inui asks what she said, but she brushes it off. Before leaving, she suggests they go out for drinks together again if he does not mind. He replies that he would look forward to it. As she continues walking, she nearly loses her balance. Seeing this, Inui decides to escort her all the way to the platform. However, she insists that she can manage on her own and tells him not to worry. Inui watches her leave, quietly reflecting on how unexpectedly the evening unfolded. One day, the director is browsing a bookstore when Inui arrives and apologizes for being late. Curious about her book, he asks what she is reading. Startled, she quickly hides it, insisting it is nothing, then tells him they should get going. Later, they are seated at a train station. The director checks whether this is Inui's first external meeting and reminds him to stay confident. Noticing that she seems uneasy, he asks if she is feeling all right. She suggests moving to another train car with more space. After boarding, they find the carriage extremely crowded. The director stands near a pillar while Inui stands in front of her. She remarks that the crowd is probably the same throughout the train. Without warning, passengers push from behind, forcing Inui forward into the director. The pressure continues until both of them lose their balance and fall to the floor. Feeling overwhelmed, Inui worries that the situation is getting out of hand. Realizing it was an accident, the director reassures him and advises him to stay still until things settle. He follows her advice as they remain in the crowded carriage. When they reach their stop, Inui comments on how packed the train was. The director reminds him that the meeting location is nearby and encourages him to prepare mentally. At the company, Inui is impressed by its size and becomes determined not to make any mistakes that might reflect poorly on the director. Thanking her for bringing him along, he follows her inside. They are greeted by two representatives, who thank them for coming. Inui notices that the director receives formal treatment wherever she goes. She simply remarks that she is used to it before signaling the start of the meeting. She has Inui distribute the meeting materials before beginning the presentation. Once the proposal is reviewed, the representatives praise it highly, saying it meets their expectations because of both the director's reputation and the quality of her work. She accepts the compliment modestly. However, one representative suddenly makes an inappropriate remark about marriage, suggesting that her company would suffer if she married and took time away from work. He adds that she is too devoted to her career to think about such matters, leaving the director visibly uncomfortable. Watching the exchange, Inui feels it is best not to involve himself. A short while later, the director announces that Inui will present the final section. The sudden responsibility makes him nervous, and his explanation lacks confidence. The representatives question his ability, treating him like an inexperienced employee who still needs close supervision. As they continue doubting his capabilities, Inui notices the sharp contrast between how they treat him and how they treated the director. Seeing him struggle, the director calls for a short break. She tells the representatives that this is precisely why she brought him, emphasizing that he has great potential and will become a valuable asset. She also criticizes experienced employees who merely agree with others instead of contributing meaningful ideas. The representatives immediately apologize, acknowledge her point, and thank her for the feedback. The discussion then resumes on a more respectful note. After leaving the meeting, Inui apologizes for his nervous performance during his first external assignment. The director reassures him that there is no need to worry. She also admits that she found the representatives' behavior inappropriate, particularly their comments about marriage in a professional setting. Inui praises her, saying she is genuinely a good person based on everything he has seen. He starts mentioning that he has similar concerns but struggles to put them into words. The director encourages him, saying he will eventually find the right person. Inui then turns the question back to her. Flustered, she insists she is fine and tells him not to worry about her personal life. Emotionally, Inui says she should not think that way because she is not alone. He adds that he is single as well and voices his frustration. The director gently redirects the conversation, encouraging him to focus on the present instead. Inui briefly misinterprets her words before quickly realizing his mistake. She immediately clarifies that he misunderstood what she meant. The director is drinking tea while Inui is getting juice from a vending machine. Suddenly, his coin falls under the machine. When he bends down to pick it up, he notices a cockroach underneath and screams in shock. Seeing his reaction, the director says that there is no need to make such a fuss over a cockroach. Inui responds in confusion, and their exchange quickly turns into a heated disagreement. She insists that the problem can simply be handled with insect spray. She brings the spray and eliminates the cockroach, then confronts Inui and tells him to speak if he has anything to say. After that, she takes him to a closed space and brings a bag full of insect sprays. She hands one to him and announces that the search will begin. She also says that she will not forgive him for embarrassing her in front of her subordinate. Then, she orders him to check every corner carefully. Although Inui feels uneasy about her unusual intensity, he still follows her instructions. He starts using the spray while she demonstrates how to search properly by spraying around the area and forcing anything hidden to come out. Soon, a cockroach emerges from its hiding place. Both of them continue trying to eliminate it as the search expands throughout the area, with her strictly leading and Inui following her commands. As they continue searching, they hear a scratching sound. She assumes that the work break is over and decides to return to her duties. However, Inui insists that everything is not finished yet and refuses to stop. His response immediately puts her on alert, and she realizes that there may be more than one insect present. Without hesitation, she reacts and uses the insect spray again. Amid the confusion, another flying insect suddenly hits Inui's face, causing him to lose consciousness. She quickly moves to him, supports his head, and expresses concern over his reckless behavior. At the same time, she acknowledges the effort he made during the incident. Afterward, she shifts her attention back to the flying insect and eliminates it before continuing her work. She treats the incident as part of her responsibility and balances both completing the task and protecting her subordinate. At the same time, she accepts the difficulty of managing both roles. A container filled with waste then comes into view, and multiple insects begin emerging from inside, indicating that the problem has spread further. Wearing full protective gear, she moves through the area while using insect spray to eliminate the insects. Nearby, Inui remains cautious and unsettled as he observes her actions while she proceeds with the extermination process. She continues preparing stronger measures and concentrates on clearing the entire area while maintaining strict control over the operation. Inui appears hesitant as she intensifies her efforts and treats the situation as a full-scale elimination task. The problem escalates even further when she expresses the need to remove all traces of the insects to prevent them from spreading again. Her attention remains fixed on complete eradication while Inui watches the entire process. The director notices Inui wearing a face covering and immediately realizes he is sick. Although Inui insists it is only a minor illness, she disagrees, warning him not to underestimate it and deciding he needs treatment right away. She prepares an injection, assuring him it will only cause slight discomfort. Frightened, Inui protests, claiming the treatment would be worse than the illness itself and joking that he might suffer more from the injection than from his cold. The story then shifts to Inui resting at home. Earlier that day, the director checked his temperature, confirmed he was unwell, and sent him home with instructions to recover properly. Inui worries that his absence will inconvenience everyone and that staying at work could spread his illness. The director considers it a half-day leave and tells him to stop worrying about work, reminding him that his duties are demanding and that working while sick would only make things worse. He admits he relies on her support too often and feels he cannot keep doing so. She reminds him that, as a new employee, he should not place so much pressure on himself. Although he understands, he still feels uneasy. While resting, Inui drifts in and out of sleep until he hears a familiar voice. Realizing it belongs to the director, he wakes up in surprise. She tells him she came to check on him after receiving no response through the intercom. Concerned about his condition, she let herself inside. Surprised, Inui questions how she entered. She casually replies that opening a locked door is not difficult for her when someone's well-being is at stake. Inui points out that doing so is inappropriate and wonders why she is not at work. She says her schedule is light that day and that she wanted to make sure he was all right. When Inui tries to prepare tea, she immediately stops him and tells him to stay in bed. Despite her warning, he attempts to stand, loses his balance, and stumbles into her. She tells him that this only proves he should not be taking care of others while he is the one who is ill. After he apologizes, she decides to make him porridge and tells him to rest. Left alone, Inui reflects on his childhood. He remembers his mother scolding him for never resting and always seeking recognition through hard work. Recalling how often he became sick, he realizes he has not changed much. A little later, the director returns with a bowl of porridge. She finds Inui quietly crying as he remembers his mother. Embarrassed, he apologizes, thanks her for helping him, and wonders if he had been too stubborn earlier. She admits there may have been a better way to handle the situation, though she only wanted to care for one of her employees. Inui reassures her that she has nothing to apologize for because she was simply trying to help. Clarifying that she is not apologizing, she tells him it is all right to rely on her for today. She then feeds him the porridge herself. After tasting it, Inui says it is good, and she is pleased to hear it. While eating, Inui reflects on how often he makes mistakes, receives criticism, and falls short of his own expectations. He wonders if he will ever become as capable as the director, whose responsibilities he deeply admires. The director gently points out that he may be placing her on too high a pedestal, admitting that her own methods often make her difficult to approach. Even so, she appreciates that he continues to support and follow her, adding that his efforts motivate her to keep doing her best. She reminds him that someone is always noticing his hard work. Before leaving, she tells him to finish his meal before it gets cold and reminds him that resting is part of recovering. With that, she says they will see each other again at the company. A few days later, after work, Inui and the director leave the building together. She thanks him for his hard work, notes that he is getting used to the job, and reminds him to compile a summary of the data once they return to the office. As they step outside, it suddenly starts raining. The director opens her umbrella while Inui searches his bag, hoping he brought one. She tells him not to worry, explaining that she predicted the rain by observing the clouds, wind direction, and temperature. She then awkwardly admits that she never checked the forecast and simply thought bringing an umbrella would be a good idea. As Inui is about to leave, he notices a nearby cat and wonders if it is a stray. The director agrees. The cat runs under their umbrella to escape the rain. Inui gently remarks that it must be trying to stay dry before asking if they can keep it at the office. The director immediately refuses, explaining that taking in a stray would be a major responsibility. Inui replies that he already knows that. After a moment, they move on, leaving the umbrella over the cat while they run through the rain to a nearby shelter. Inui jokes that he lost his umbrella in a very unexpected way. Noticing the rain shows no sign of stopping, he admits the director's prediction was right and asks what they should do next. By the time they reach the shelter, both of them are completely soaked. The rain has made the director's shirt partially transparent, and Inui notices but hesitates to mention it, fearing she might think he was staring. The director calls his name and hands him a handkerchief to dry himself. Inui accepts it, offering to wash and return it later, but she tells him not to worry about it. With the rain still falling, Inui asks if she is cold. She admits she is a little chilly. He offers her his coat, saying he already feels warm. Although she initially declines, he insists it is simply his way of thanking her for the handkerchief. She eventually accepts it, commenting that she does not quite understand his reasoning. The director then asks whether he noticed something earlier. Inui feigns confusion, but she points out that his awkward behavior suggests otherwise. Rather than answer, he remarks that the rain is letting up and says they should hurry back to the office. He immediately runs off, and the director chases after him, telling him to stop changing the subject and come back. On a hot summer day, Inui arrives at the office, feeling exhausted due to the heat. The director notices him and greets him in the morning. Upon seeing the director's outfit, Inui becomes distracted and reacts with surprise, noticing how different she looks compared to her usual formal appearance in the summer weather. The director calmly explains that it has become hotter, and since she also wears suits regularly, she is managing the situation in her own way. Hearing this, Inui becomes mentally overwhelmed and starts overthinking her appearance, finding it unexpectedly striking. He then sits in a room, still lost in thought, unable to properly focus on his work. Later, the director approaches him and asks what he is thinking about, noticing his unusual behavior. Inui responds in confusion, saying that nothing is wrong and that he only finds her appearance different today, while internally denying his thoughts and struggling to control them. The director reacts strongly to his comment, becomes upset, and leaves the area. Inui quickly stops her and tries to explain himself, realizing he may have offended her. The director asks him not to speak to her at that moment and requests space. Inui remains confused, realizing that he has caused tension without intending to. The next day, Inui slightly opens the director's door and asks if she is still angry with him from yesterday, greeting her nervously. He enters and apologizes, but the director responds sharply, pointing out that he is a bit late. She stands close and mentions that she is not wearing her usual suit today. Inui becomes confused and starts thinking this change is connected to what happened before, as if it is a reminder for him to be careful. He tries to respond properly and says that her summer look suits her, and the director asks for confirmation. Inui agrees and praises her fashion sense. A few days later, the director's dressing style changes again, and others in the office are surprised. Inui notices this and feels that her style has changed too much, leading him to think he may be influencing her decisions. He calls her and asks to talk, then enters her room and closes the door. He asks why she is no longer wearing suits. The director replies that she stopped because she does not find them appealing anymore. Inui says he preferred her formal suit style as well, as it looked more refined, even though her current look also suits her. The director ends the conversation and returns to work. Inui feels uncertain about the outcome. Later, he receives a message from her about tomorrow's outfit along with a picture, and he becomes worried about where this situation is heading. Inui is working on his system when he notices a problem and calls out to Director Shishido, asking for a moment and explaining that a part of the system is not functioning properly. The director comes over and asks what the issue is. She places a hand on the back of his chair while looking at the screen. Inui points out the specific section, and she leans in closer to inspect it, positioning herself in front of him as she examines the system. She explains that there are incorrect inputs in several places and that multiple careless mistakes must be corrected for the system to function properly. While reviewing the screen, she continues pointing out errors and clarifying what needs to be fixed. Inui becomes distracted by her close presence and gradually loses focus. Even though she continues giving instructions, he struggles to follow her explanation. After finishing, she notices his lack of attention and asks if he has been listening. Inui admits that he was not fully focused. The director responds firmly, criticizing his inattentiveness and warning that if he cannot concentrate, she will supervise him for the entire day. Inui stays late in the office and completes his work. After finishing, he realizes that only the director's review remains, so he goes to her office. There, he notices that she is uncomfortable. The director mentions that her shoulders have been stiff for some time despite maintaining good posture. Inui finds this unusual and considers that it may be due to overworking. He suggests a simple method to ease the stiffness and takes her to another room with a more comfortable space. After some hesitation, she agrees. While working on her shoulders, Inui notices her reaction is stronger than expected. This confuses him, and he begins to think she may be very sensitive in that area, so he carefully adjusts his approach while continuing. As he continues, her reactions become increasingly intense. During this time, another person approaches after hearing unusual sounds and notices the situation. The director reacts even more strongly, and her response surprises both of them. Inui becomes increasingly confused, while she struggles to understand what is happening. The situation escalates further when someone opens the door and witnesses them, becoming shocked. A colleague enters and immediately questions what is happening. This interruption creates confusion, as Inui and the director are caught in an awkward situation. The director is still affected, while Inui tries to explain that he was only easing her stiffness through physical treatment. The colleague misinterprets the situation, increasing tension in the room. Afterward, the director confirms her condition has improved but acknowledges there is a clear limit to how far the process should go. Inui realizes he may have gone too far and apologizes. The misunderstanding is gradually resolved, and although she feels better, she emphasizes control and restraint in the future. Inui stands before the director and receives a severe warning. He is told that he has made repeated errors over the past few days, including today, yesterday, and the day before. The director expresses strong dissatisfaction and questions whether he has been neglecting his responsibilities. Inui apologizes, showing clear regret and fear of repeating the same mistakes. He is instructed to avoid further errors the next day. After leaving the director's room, Inui is met by his colleagues, who mock him for being reprimanded again. They joke that he is constantly taking blame and pressure in the office, treating him as someone who absorbs criticism rather than a proper employee. They also note that his situation has reduced the director's harshness toward others. At that moment, the director steps out after hearing their remarks and firmly reprimands them for disrespecting a junior staff member. She condemns their behavior as inappropriate and demeaning, emphasizing that such treatment is unacceptable. She clarifies that she is responsible for guiding Inui and that issues should be addressed through proper supervision. Later, Inui enters the director's room again. She expresses regret for being too harsh earlier and acknowledges that her reaction went beyond what was necessary. She explains that seeing him treated badly has affected her and that she does not like witnessing him being targeted. She then instructs him that, in the future, any mistakes he makes should be subtle enough that only she can notice and understand. Inui reacts internally with surprise, finding the statement difficult to process. On a hot summer day, Inui arrives at a water park and is surprised to see the director wearing a bikini. She apologizes for making him wait and comments on the weather before asking his opinion on her outfit, explaining she is not used to wearing such clothes in front of others. Inui says it looks very good on her but becomes mentally overwhelmed by the unexpected situation. Earlier that day, Inui and the director had attended a client invitation. The client thanks them for their support in helping his company open a new establishment and for their continued work despite the heat. The director politely responds that they should be the ones thanking him for the meeting. The client then offers tickets to a pool facility he manages, explaining that he wants them to visit as appreciation for their contribution. Although the director tries to refuse, the client insists. Later, while walking toward the pool, the director tells Inui that the facility must be impressive if the client confidently invited them. Inui agrees, but she reminds him not to relax simply because they were invited, noting there must be a business reason behind it. Before entering the water, she stops him and insists he apply sunscreen first, explaining its importance for health and appearance. Inui jokingly offers to apply sunscreen to her back, and to his surprise, she agrees. While applying sunscreen, Inui becomes nervous and overwhelmed by the situation. The director reacts briefly, startled, and apologizes, saying it tickled. She then takes over and insists she will apply sunscreen to him as well, despite his refusal. After finishing preparations, she announces they are ready to swim. Inui quickly clarifies that he was not refusing. Inui and the director arrive at a pool after being invited by one of their clients. Looking over the completed renovation, they note how much the facility has improved and how successfully the project has turned out. Visitors are enjoying various attractions throughout the facility. Inui looks around and comments on how impressive everything appears. After considering the different attractions, the director decides to begin with the Olympic-sized swimming course. Inui looks surprised and questions whether that course might be too large. The director stands by her decision and encourages him to follow. While walking through the facility, Inui remembers reading that one of the water slides is regarded as one of the biggest and fastest in Japan. After riding the slide once, the director enthusiastically suggests going again. Inui agrees, though privately he hopes they will not have to ride it another time. After leaving the slide and entering the water, the director calls out to him. Hearing her voice, Inui immediately asks whether something is wrong. He turns and realizes that part of her swimsuit has come loose. The director remains calm and tells him not to draw attention to the situation. Inui notices the missing part floating nearby and offers to retrieve it. She quickly stops him, pointing out that drawing attention could make the situation worse. When he tries to move ahead, she asks him not to leave her there by herself. Inui tells her to stay behind him while he retrieves it. She moves closer behind him, becoming awkwardly aware of how little space separates them. Without warning, she loses her footing and falls forward onto him. Inui reacts immediately and asks if she is all right. She assures him that she is fine. As she regains her balance, she realizes he is more muscular than she had expected. At the same time, she becomes aware that she has never been this physically close to a man before. He supports her carefully and helps her steady herself, asking if she can stand. After regaining her balance completely, she thanks him. Eventually, Inui succeeds in retrieving the swimsuit. He hands it back to the director and tells her to put it back on while he blocks the view. Holding the swimsuit, she explains that she needs both hands free to put it on properly and asks him to close his eyes. The request catches Inui off guard. He quickly agrees, apologizing and assuring her that he will not look. She warns him not to peek. Afterward, she thanks him again, saying that he helped her through the situation. Inui responds that there is no reason for her to thank him. He jokingly remarks that he got something out of the incident too. Hearing that, she jokes that she may have to make sure he forgets the whole incident. He immediately objects, explaining that there had been no way for him to avoid the situation. He suddenly runs off. She chases him, telling him not to talk back. Seeing them run near the pool, someone reminds them not to run around the pool area. The scene shifts back to the office. In the storage room, the director stands on a ladder to retrieve a box and asks Inui to hold it while keeping the ladder steady. Inui suggests that he should climb instead, but before she can respond, she loses her balance and falls onto him. She quickly apologizes, and Inui assures her that it is fine as long as she is not hurt. Just then, the storage room door opens, and two employees enter. Wondering why they are there, the director assumes they may be avoiding work and prepares to confront them. Before she can step out, she notices the pair kissing. Startled, Inui quickly covers her mouth and pulls her back to keep them from being noticed. Hearing the movement, the two employees become suspicious and wonder if someone is there. The director quietly asks Inui what is happening. Misreading the situation, she assumes they might be running away together. As they remain hidden, Inui realizes the two employees are actually dating. The director is surprised he figured it out so quickly and admits she never noticed. Inui remarks that she is not very observant when it comes to relationships. They continue listening as the couple talks. One employee seems uneasy about meeting in the storage room, while the other appears unconcerned. After a moment, Inui quietly warns that staying any longer could make things awkward. The director does not understand and asks why. A short while later, one employee adjusts her clothing to show something she recently bought. Before Inui can look, the director quickly covers his eyes and tells him not to. Puzzled, she wonders why people would behave so casually at work. Noticing her reaction, Inui points out that she is making her thoughts obvious. Still confused, she quietly wonders how the clothing works and remains surprised by how comfortable the two employees are with each other. Inui asks if she is all right and suggests they intervene before things go further. After hesitating, the director asks if he can handle it. Still thinking about what she witnessed, she wonders whether people naturally become interested in such things after they start dating. Inui replies that it depends on the person and that such thoughts can sometimes occur. She then asks whether he would ever behave that way at work. Inui immediately denies it. Realizing the question was too personal, the director apologizes and explains that, as the person in charge, she simply wants to maintain proper workplace conduct. Inui agrees. Finally, she steps out from behind the shelves, approaches the two employees, and politely asks if they have a moment to speak with him. In a restaurant, Inui sits with the director as she mentions that grilled meat is a good way to recover energy. Since they both have the next day off, she suggests eating freely and enjoying the meal. She then wonders why he invited her out so suddenly. Inui hesitates before answering, which makes her suspect he has another reason for the invitation. When she asks him directly, he quickly denies it. Soon, their order arrives with several cuts of meat and side dishes. The director eagerly begins preparing the food. Inui says he wants to start eating immediately, but she tells him to wait until everything is properly cooked. Once the food is ready, they enjoy the meal together. The director ends up eating more than usual, while Inui remarks that the food is excellent. After they finish, she returns to the earlier topic and asks what his real reason for inviting her was. Startled, Inui apologizes and admits that he wanted to make up for being scolded earlier. The director accepts his explanation but muses that she would have preferred a simple, straightforward invitation instead. After the meeting ends, Inui tells everyone to carefully review the documents before they leave. Once the room is empty, the director finally takes a short break, noting that the meeting has concluded. Inui praises her performance, and she mentions that her shoulders feel stiff after all the work. Suddenly, a button falls off her shirt. Inui notices it, retrieves a sewing kit, and offers it to her. Although she says she has one at home, he insists on helping and offers to step outside to give her privacy while she fixes it. Before leaving, he briefly explains how to sew the button back on. Moments later, he hears a noise from inside and checks on her. Admitting she is not good at sewing, the director asks him to do it instead. Inui reassures her that it has nothing to do with her professional abilities and agrees to help. She asks whether she should give him the shirt so he can sew it properly. Inui explains that it cannot be repaired while it is being worn. Embarrassed, she turns away and removes it so he can reattach the button. As Inui works, the director grows increasingly embarrassed about appearing before her subordinate in such a situation. She worries about what he might think if he turns around and finds the entire situation deeply awkward. After reattaching the button, Inui finishes the repair. The director thanks him, while Inui quietly reflects on how unexpectedly awkward the situation turned out to be. Chief Shishido is known as both attractive and intimidating, and everyone in the company knows not to upset her. She calls Inui over and confronts him in frustration, asking if he has truly failed to notice anything different throughout the day. She adds that she has been holding back her feelings for quite some time. Inui immediately becomes nervous and starts searching for possible mistakes, wondering if there was an error in the meeting documents or the report figures. Since she has been acting unusual all day, he becomes even more uncertain about what he may have missed. Unable to figure it out, he hesitantly asks if she is upset because he ate the snacks without her. The director dismisses this and says she will deal with that later, repeating that he still has not noticed what has changed. Inui admits that he does not understand. She tells him that a businessman should be observant and aware of even small details. After a pause, she finally reveals the reason. She has changed her hairstyle and expected him to notice. Inui looks more carefully and asks what exactly is different. She explains that she has added side bangs. After another look, he realizes the change is clear. However, the director remains dissatisfied with his lack of immediate recognition. The director casually sits in front of Inui at a table and challenges him to eat the lunch she prepares the next day. He becomes confused and asks for clarification, unable to understand her request. She explains that her pride and honor are at stake, treating it as a personal challenge rather than a simple favor. She adds that her weakness in sewing does not mean she is incapable of other tasks. Hearing this, Inui realizes she is still concerned about the earlier incident. As she leaves the room, she reminds him again about the challenge. Once alone, Inui reflects on her unusual demand. He finds it strange, yet also feels a sense of anticipation toward the lunch she intends to prepare. Later that night, at the director's home, she begins preparing the lunchbox after carefully planning the menu. She focuses on creating what she considers the ideal homemade meal, checking each step with care. While cooking, she talks to herself about the final touches. Remembering that Inui dislikes green peas, she still includes a small portion, thinking it would not matter. The next day, she leads him away and suggests they avoid the cafeteria, saying too many people watching would make her uncomfortable. Inui notices the attention around them but follows without objection. Later, she brings him into a room and asks if he is ready, reminding him not to assume she cannot handle basic tasks. He replies that he never thought that way. When he sees the lunchbox, he is surprised by how well it is prepared. She instructs him to eat, and he begins the meal. He finds the food extremely delicious and praises it sincerely, saying he could eat it every day. Slightly embarrassed but satisfied, she watches his reaction. As he continues eating, she reminds him to finish everything, including the green peas, making sure nothing is left behind. The director notices several mistakes in Inui's document. He quickly apologizes and offers to fix them immediately, expecting to be scolded. Instead, she reacts calmly and shows no anger. She suggests that the unusual wording may simply reflect his personal style. Inui is confused by this unexpected reaction, as he had anticipated criticism. She then checks his preparation for the upcoming meeting. He confirms that most of it is complete. She acknowledges this and asks whether he has also finished the documents and arranged the meeting room. He replies that both tasks are done. Satisfied with his progress, she praises his work. Inui feels uneasy, as her attitude differs from usual. As he is about to leave, she calls him back, and he asks her to return to her usual self as chief. Arriving at the office earlier than usual, Inui begins his work with steady focus and determination. The director arrives later and notices his early start and consistent progress. While acknowledging his improvement and reduced overtime, she questions why he is still pushing himself so hard. Suspecting he may be taking on extra responsibilities or being pressured by others, she firmly states that she never assigned him such an excessive workload. Inui calmly explains that he is not under pressure. He shares that a senior colleague's child suddenly fell ill, and he chose to complete the work in their place. Although the tasks were initially intended for him, the emergency changed the situation. She responds firmly, telling him he should not take everything upon himself, even in such cases. Inui lowers his gaze, slightly discouraged. Noticing this, she assigns him the remaining work directly, adding that he still has a long way to go before she can fully rely on him, and instructs him to finish it quickly. Afterward, Inui thanks her for the opportunity to work under her guidance. Slightly surprised, she remarks that a weak person would have already left the company. He clarifies that he is sincere and motivated to reach her level of dedication, while privately noting that despite her strictness, she continues working hard for her staff. She apologizes for being too harsh and advises him to focus more on actions than words, adding that his earlier embarrassment may have affected his performance. She also reminds him that he is still not someone she can fully depend on. Later, while Inui completes his tasks, he reflects that he has been in a similar situation before. At that moment, the director steps closer and tells him that what he is feeling is not imagination. She recalls his first day at the company, when he was heavily pressured and often worked overtime in distress, explaining that such conditions are not normal. Inui immediately apologizes for his past behavior. She tells him that overtime should always be his own choice, not something driven by obligation, and gently pats his head, warning him not to overwork himself. A phone call interrupts the moment. Inui answers and confirms that all tasks are completed and progressing well. After the call, he wonders if he should mention the director's help, feeling it may seem like he is taking credit. She advises him to remain silent about it and turns her attention to the call. Inui then shows her a photo of the child involved earlier, explaining that they are recovering well. The director quietly reflects on family life for a moment. Suddenly, Inui remarks that she would make a good mother. Surprised, she says it is the first time she has heard that directly and denies assumptions about her personal life. She then states that, based on working with him, she believes he can build a good family in the future as well. Inui responds that she is also good at caring for others and suggests she would make a good mother too. She quickly stops him, acknowledging his point and telling him not to continue. She asks if he is speaking only as her subordinate, and he agrees. Accepting this, she prepares to leave and tells him to exit the office before security arrives. The next day, Inui arrives at work while reflecting on the previous conversation and the director's unusual behavior. He wonders what she truly meant and how his perception of her would change if she were not a woman. While walking through the office, he overhears employees discussing the director's upcoming marriage. Hearing this, Inui is left completely shocked. Inui is at the office when he overhears colleagues discussing that the director is getting married. He is shocked, finding the news too sudden. They add that the ceremony will be held at the office later that day. He wonders if this explains her unusual behavior the previous day, when she spoke more about family. He even considers that he might end up leaving the company after her absence or honeymoon period if things change. Around him, employees continue talking about the wedding setup inside the office building, praising the venue and saying it will reduce workplace tension. Some also make inappropriate remarks about the future husband taking control and speculate about the marriage. Inui strongly objects, telling them to stop speaking disrespectfully, and they apologize. Afterward, he falls silent, deciding these are personal matters he should not involve himself in. However, he begins questioning his place in the company if the director leaves. Returning to his desk, he finds a large stack of returned documents from the previous day. He feels the workload has increased, with repeated revisions and corrections despite her personal situation. A message from the director states that she cannot be contacted during the ceremony and advises reaching out only if necessary. It also suggests that today's situation should be sufficient on its own. Reviewing the documents, Inui notices multiple errors, including formatting issues, spelling mistakes, and missing pages. He becomes frustrated with the careless quality of the submission. The director's written notes contain strict criticism, emphasizing accuracy, though she also reflects that she may have been too harsh and should have kept her feedback shorter. She further writes that the boundary between work and personal matters has become unclear and admits, too embarrassed to say it directly, that working with Inui has become more enjoyable than expected. She adds that he may no longer need her constant supervision and that he is capable of handling responsibilities on his own. Inui is shaken after reading this. Noticing the large number of corrections, he becomes concerned and decides to leave early to address the situation, despite a colleague's surprise. He insists that work will not stop, even if someone is absent. He rushes toward the venue, thinking he is not yet fully independent, as a subordinate, and personally, he does not want the director to leave, believing he still needs her guidance. At the venue, he is stopped at the entrance for lacking an invitation. He searches for the director, mistakenly approaches the bride, and quickly realizes his error when questioned. The director then calls out to him. They step aside to talk privately. Inui explains that he came after hearing rumors about her marriage and thought she was leaving the company. The director clarifies that the event is actually her sister's wedding, not hers, and criticizes him for misunderstanding the situation. She also mentions that strange rumors about her are spreading and asks if he has something to say. Inui admits that he cannot manage without her. He confesses that he cannot accept the idea of her belonging to someone else, as it would affect his work. He adds that he wants to remain by her side both as a subordinate and personally, and that he still seeks her guidance and correction. Overcome with emotion, he pleads for her not to marry, fearing he would lose her, and that everything would collapse without her support. The director responds while continuing the conversation, saying she feels she may also not be able to continue in the same way without him. Before the moment settles, a bouquet is thrown toward her. Inui quickly steps in and catches it, realizing it was thrown by the bride. He then returns it to the director. 5 years later, Inui lives with his wife and daughter. Their daughter notices he is avoiding green peas again and complains, worried his mother will notice. His wife, Shishidu Shifuyu, scolds him for the same habit, reminding him to act as a responsible father and role model. Their daughter Fuyumi, now 5 and in kindergarten, is well behaved and finishes her meals properly, unlike him. Inui tries to defend himself lightly as the family continues their routine. During the conversation, Fuyumi becomes unsure about their relationship and asks if her mother dislikes her father. She immediately denies it, becoming flustered. Inui reassures Fuyumi that her mother does care for him, though he awkwardly admits it. His wife immediately scolds him for speaking carelessly in front of their child. Realizing his mistake again, Inui quickly apologizes.